Hey everyone, welcome back in my another amazing podcast, episode 13. So, as you know that we have another amazing guest. So, today I have a guest named Jayne. So, we're gonna know about her, and Jayne is totally amazing personality. Jayne works on building a better health on people. Okay, so let's start our podcast and welcome our guest. So, thank you so much, Jayne, for giving a wonderful time and a precious time for our podcast. So, for starting my this podcast, I would have a question for you. That could you please tell us that what is your go-to energy booster that you drink in your morning, like tea, coffee, or any milkshake?
I drink coffee in the morning. The first drink I have of the day is a milky coffee, and I like to have one of those little pots of you make it, you put it in a machine, and it makes it all frothy for you. And I like that because it's quite strong. And that's probably the only coffee that I'll have during the day. The rest of the day, I drink water or squash or tea. But that one wakes me up. That one gets me started. I like to sit very quietly with my coffee, preferably in the winter. It's quite dark here this time of year. So I like to sit in the dark and just kind of, breathe and let my body warm up and get ready for whatever it is I'm going to do for the rest of the day.
Yes, thank you so much. My favorite coffee, and I also love to drink coffee because if you drink coffee in winter, so it will warm you and your day will be relaxed and you will be relaxed. Okay, so first of all, can you please introduce yourself to our audience so that our audience will know that who are you, from where you are belong?
Where I belong.
Yes.
Yeah, so I live in the UK. I live in an area, a county that's called Cumbria. It's a very rural county, and it's quite mountainous. So it's on the border of Scotland. So lots of mountains, lots of lakes, lots of windy roads, and right now it's pretty cold. I got up this morning and it was 4 degrees Celsius, and it's going to get even colder because we're only in mid-November. So winter doesn't really take a hold here in the UK until January. So that's where I live. Do you want to hear about what I do?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so I've got what I call a portfolio of skills. So my trade, as it were, is that of teacher. I've been a teacher in the UK for 30 years, more than 30 years. I have worked my way up from sort of being a trainee teacher right the way through, so that for the last 7 of my 35 years, I was actually training new teachers. Um, Now, what I do is I split my time between um, assessing qualifications for teaching and coaching teachers who are struggling with the demands, because it seems that no matter whatever country you're working in, teachers are being overstretched, really. They're expected to do, way too much work with way too few resources, and the pay isn't brilliant. So, that can wear on your nerves after a while. So when people get really upset about it, they come and talk to me about it, and I coach them.
Oh, that's good. Like, that's an amazing intro about your passion, and that's a really great passion. Okay, so I have a question that how much years did you teach in the UK, and how was your experience teaching?
Okay, so I taught for about 35 years in the UK. My experience of teaching is that there's nothing better. There's nothing like the feeling of helping people helping people to learn. Basically, what are we if we can't learn? We're learning, taking the future generations of people, starting from that very, very early age, right the way up, and I've dealt with them all, from the tiny little ones right the way up to middle managers, and senior managers. And I really get a thrill out of helping people. In terms of the experience, I guess there's two elements to the experience. There's the experience of being a teacher and teaching in the classroom and working with your students and, problem solving with them and getting that penny to drop. That's a wonderful, wonderful privilege that I very much enjoy. The other side of it is that you're being managed. I don't know about in Pakistan, but often in the UK by people who've never been in a classroom, so they don't really know what that experience is, what that entails. You're trying to implement all sorts of governmental guidelines and procedures and expectations that sometimes the two, are not exclusively mutual to one another. Yeah, you've got to look after your students' mental health and well-being, but then you've got to report them for having poor attendance. There's kind of a disconnect in there somewhere. So I guess what I'm saying is the experience of most teachers really in the UK is the teaching bit is wonderful. It's lovely. The administrative processes sometimes just leave you shaking your head and thinking, whose bright idea was this or not? Yeah. So there you go.
Okay, so that's good. Like you teach 35 years. That's a very that's very shocking news that we can change any school in 35 years. We could change any school, but you teach 35 years. That's an amazing news, and that's so good. Okay, so could you please tell us that what core principles guide the way you teach your clients or students?
My core principles are that it's all about the student. Sorry, I just got to wipe my eye. It's all about the student. Many a person gets into teaching because they think it's all about them and their knowledge and their skills. That really isn't the case, because when you get into a classroom, you need to park your ego and you need to recognize that it's all about the student. It's all about the student's needs. It's all about the way that student can take on board that information. So it's not about how much you know. And I used to have a saying when I was teaching, newcomers to the teaching profession. I used to say, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's a core principle of mine. Care about your students. Be kind to your students. Just because you're in a position of power doesn't mean to say you have to wield it. In fact, you'll get more out of your student if you don't wield it. So that's one of them. Another one of my core principles is that all teaching, and I will expand that for you to say all life, but certainly all teaching is psychology. All teaching is psychology. I've had trainees come to me and go, I've got this student and they just won't do anything for me. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So let's do some psychology. Let's do some figuring out as to why it is this student won't do anything for you. And in the past, what I've come to realize is that students who won't work for you really don't trust you. Yeah, they're not sure that you have their best interests at heart. And so it's about getting that process over. But yeah, all teaching is psychology.
Okay, thank you so much. And that's really great answer that you got like that type of core principles which guided the way. Okay, so I have a next question that how type of how type of students you get when you were teaching, and what you will say that which type of them were.
I got all sorts of students. So throughout my career, I have dealt with the socially disadvantaged. So that would be students who don't come necessarily from a family background where they are well looked after and nurtured. It might be from a background where there is a lot of poverty involved. And certainly it can also come from a background where learning is perhaps not prioritized within the family unit. And by that, I can coin the phrase kind of thing, never mind going to school and getting qualifications, get out and get a job kind of thing. Yeah. I've also dealt with, on the other end of the spectrum, I've also dealt with middle and senior managers who are doing advanced apprenticeship, so foundation degree apprenticeship, that sort of thing. They are different, both are difficult, can be difficult to manage. They're not always difficult to manage, but they can both be difficult to manage in completely different ways. So, and then I've got all the in between. So I've worked with 16-year-olds who are what I call on the cusp of becoming adults. And so they're not quite there yet, but they're starting to develop an adult attitude to life. I've dealt with those. I've taught information technology to students. I've taught business to students. And as I say, in my last 7 years, I taught teaching to students. And possibly teaching to students, they could have been my most challenging, in the respect that when you learn to be a teacher, if you haven't already, you've got to change your mindset. You've got to change the way you think about people and the world. Because as I said, the learner is paramount. It's all about the learners. It's not about you. And that's, for some people, that's quite a difficult U-turn to make.
Okay, that's great and wonderful students you get, and very harmful, like very harmful. Okay, so what tools or frameworks do you teach what that students find most effective?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yes, do you say something?
Yes, can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, sure. Okay, so my question was that what tools or frameworks do you teach that students find most effective?
The frameworks, um, that's a difficult one to answer, really, because, okay, I'm going to answer it this way. What students find most effective by learning is not necessarily the subject matter, although the subject matter can really enhance their lives. If you learn to use information technology well, it makes a huge difference. If you learn to do business well, it makes a huge difference. But the thing that makes the most difference is learning to self-evaluate. Yeah, and that's something I teach all my students. Learn to figure out for yourself what your learning needs are. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? What's ahead in the future for you? What's your aspiration? Figure out what you need to get there. Figure out what you're good at already and what you could do with some assistance with, and then plan out the way you're going to get that assistance. Plan out your learning journey. And that is the most effective part of being a student, is recognizing what you do well, what you could improve on, and how to get there. And really, that's the secret to life, isn't it? Yeah, at the end of the day. I missed that, Fatima, because the sound isn't coming through. Could you repeat it?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so my next question would be from you is that can you share a success story where your teaching made a major transformation in someone's life?
Yes, I can. So, a gentleman came to me as a student. He was in his mid-50s. He had been a welder all his life, and he wanted to be a teacher. And, he came to my classes, and within a week or so, I kind of found this man looking very, very despondent, very, very upset with himself. And we sat down and we had a talk. And it transpired that even though he'd been a welder all his life, he'd never really done any reading as such. He'd read a manual, he'd read instructions, but he'd never read anything else. So I was coming up with words like differentiation and, androgyny and epistemology and things like this. And it was completely blowing his mind. And he was convinced that he couldn't achieve this qualification, which was a level 4 in education. So we're talking, just below foundation degree level. And we chatted and we talked, and I reassured him that I would be there to help him every step of the way. So I did, I explained all the horrible words. I also explained to him that I didn't care whether he used those words or not, as long as he understood the concept. That was what was important. I also didn't care about his spelling and punctuation, because you know what? We can put that right. You don't have to worry about it. Let the software do it for you, and things like that. And we had our moments. We had periods of time when there were months when he didn't put in an assignment and I didn't hear from him. But eventually we'd tie back up again and we'd start again. And one of the proudest moments of my career was seeing him accept his diploma, and the look on his face was just priceless, quite frankly. He'd gone from a man who was utterly convinced he was going to fail the course and therefore lose his job, to becoming actually what was, even in his quite early days, he was really quite an adept teacher. And you know why? Because he liked his students. Yeah, he liked being a teacher. He liked adapting to the students' needs. And that came through in all of his teaching. And it was absolutely wonderful to see.
Okay, that's amazing. And I think so you doesn't make a transformation on that man. You make transformation all the students you were having when you were teaching. Okay. So, making our interview funny, I have a question that what is one wellness habit that like habit you that do might surprise people?
Oh, gosh, that's a good one. Oh, okay, I've got one. I I've got a treadmill and an exercise bike um, that I go on almost on a daily basis. I wouldn't say daily, but maybe 5 days out of 7. And if I'm being honest with you, it's boring, 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 using a treadmill, using an exercise bike. So what I discovered on YouTube were videos that explain Buddhist philosophy. So I stick my YouTube on and I walk away on my treadmill and I pedal on my bike and I listen to Buddhist philosophy. And at first it was just a distraction from what was boring, but actually I've come to quite like listening to that because it seems to align very much with my view on life, with my view on teaching, coaching, living, all of that. So that might surprise people.
Okay, I think so that it will surprise everyone who are watching our podcast. Okay, so I have a last question that if people could take away one message or one key message from you, so from today's conversation and from you, so what would it be?
I think the key message that I would like people to take away is that there are two kind of people in the world. There are those people who think that they are the victim of circumstance, that they have no control over what happens, they have no control over where they are going in life. And then there is another kind of person, and that is the kind of person who says, I am going to set goals and I'm going to work towards those goals. And I would like people to take away that working towards goals is so powerful, you can barely put it into words. It doesn't always work. You don't always get what you've worked towards, but what you do get along the way is a belief in yourself, the discipline of always learning something, and the rewards of what you've learned, which often can be, better life, better lifestyle, better job, all of that. And that's what most of us aspire to, isn't it? Is to get a job that we enjoy doing, pays us enough money to have a reasonably comfortable life. The way to get that is to self-evaluate, understand where you want to go, what you need to do to get there, and start planning out the learning.
Okay, thank you so much, Jen, and that was great for with talking with you and great to know about your journey and your all question answers and your life and your before life was too much great. You teach 35 years your students reviews and more about you was too much good and thank you so much for your precious time. At the last, what would you say?
What would I say about what?
Like about our interview or what message you would give to the audience who are watching us.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been fun. I've really enjoyed it. Um, and, I'd say to the audience, listen to more of your podcasts because, people are giving them information that if they had to pay for it would be very, very expensive. And I wish everybody well. Go in peace and, respect your fellow man. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much, Jane, for a great last advice, and thank you for coming in our podcast. Hope that you have liked it, and thank you for your precious time. Let's end and wind up this podcast. Everyone, that was today's our special guest, Jane, and thank you so much, Jane. So,
You're welcome.
we'll meet tomorrow in a new podcast. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye, Jane.